Hi guys, welcome. This is my Hyrox Manchester race day video. Now, if you guys have watched any of my other videos, you will realise that I like to tell a bit of a story about how I get to the start line, as well as how I get to the finish line. Now, this isn't one of them showy off videos, this isn't a flag chasing exercise, this isn't one of those how to do a Hyrox videos. This is a very realistic Hyrox told in a very sort of straightforward way, through storytelling. So, Hyrox Manchester, when they announced this particular event, the Manchester 24-25 event, they announced it as being a double weekend, right, to sort of mitigate some of those ticket problems that they've been having. More tickets means more people get to come and do a Hyrox. So I thought, yes, fantastic Hyrox, well done on that. So I entered the ballot, I put my preferred day, only to find out that I didn't get a place again. But then I saw people talking about a link on an Instagram story. I followed it, I found tickets, I was able to add men's doubles to basket and check out. So I immediately did that impulsively, without thinking, and just secured those tickets, right? I didn't want to miss out. So I then asked the two chaps, James and John, if they were prepared to do a Hyrox doubles with me, and they were both busy. We had a new puppy here and we had a 15th birthday party of a daughter over here, right? So we had real reasons as to not come and do a Hyrox. I then asked my friends, I asked co-workers, I asked people at the gym. No one would be prepared to step up and do a doubles with me at such short notice. Lots of legitimate reasons, I don't blame any of them. But I was without a partner and I wanted to go and do this particular event. The day before I was considering selling it, John comes back to me and says, Martin, it's my daughter's 15th birthday, you know this. But through some creative parenting and maybe a little bit of bribery, my wife and my daughter are going off on a girlish shopping day, which would render him as the dad relatively useless and inert, right? So that frees him up to come play Hyrox with me. So I quickly locked him into the ticket, took his money, and it was on. The story behind me and John is also quite cool. When I started doing Hyrox and I joined the online Facebook community in the Facebook group, a fella named John Stevenson was commenting a lot on the rowing stuff, and he hadn't even done a Hyrox at that point, but lots of advice about rowing, and that's because he comes from a pedigree of rowing.
Go on! Yeah. Go on, change it! Go on! Keep going!
Sort of world records under his belt and lots of gold medals and championships and lots of things of that nature. Really fantastic at what he's done, and he's converted those skills as he's got older into a YouTube channel which he runs now, which is coaching thousands of people through rowing each and every week. And then last year he did a race and he got a 1:15, a sort of a 75-minute effort, and I thought, hold on a minute, our times are almost comparable now. I'm not particularly fast, and John would admit he's not particularly fast either, but they're comparable to one another, and that's the important thing. It wouldn't leave one of us ahead and one of us behind. So I thought this is a great opportunity to ask him if he wanted to come and do a Hyrox event with me. I asked him and he said yes. We are now going into Hyrox Manchester, then we're going into Hyrox London. So we get two bites of the apple and we get two chances to lay down a good time. And I think we're going into this with on the first event as being we'll set a time, we'll see how we do. We've sort of tried to figure out the order and quantities in which we're going to do things, but that's a very loose plan and it might have to change on the day. This is what I've learned from doing doubles in the past. The plans rarely pan out perfectly. The sort of kicker with this particular outing is that me and John have never competed together. We've never trained together. We've only ever met in real life like 3 times. So we're going to have to do quite a bit of that sort of figuring out as we go, looking at each other's panic cues. If there are problems, we can address them before the second event. So that's where we are. Martin and John, two YouTubing types, going at it together at a Hyrox event, right? This is going to be such a fun day out. I'm not going to bore you anymore. I'm just going to hand over to Manchester and we will take it from there. Right, LFG. And I'm here at the Manchester Convention Centre for Manchester Hyrox. This is my 4th time here, waiting for John to get here shortly. Yeah, very excited to see him, very excited to sort of get ready, ride this ride with John all the way round. Very curious to see how we do today. Just no idea, having not trained with him before, not raced with him before. I know what we're both capable of. It's what we can do together that counts. Okay, so we're in the warm-up area now, and we're going to start to get ready. We're just waiting for John to arrive. I've heard he's in the building. All we've got to do is sort of then start to talk about the game plan, as we don't really know what we're going to do. Ah! Dude! We're here! So John is here now, and we're going to talk a little bit about our strategy out there. We've talked about it on WhatsApp, haven't we?
Yes.
But we don't really know how that's going to manifest out there, and we've got to account for if things go wrong. And we need to know who's going to go and do what first. That's kind of important, and how much we're going to do.
Yeah.
Right, so let's start at the beginning. Ski erg.
I think I go in first, so I'll do the run, I'll go in, I'll do my 250, I'll then drop the handles, you go, then I go, then you go, then we run again.
Yep. I've always said out on the right, in on the left, so you don't bump into each other. That's what I've always said with James and Holly.
Right, so basically I go there and then I step out that way.
Yeah, that's what we don't want to happen. But I'll be behind you in this context. So you're finish, out.
Well, I see like a
So, all we got to do is not get our lefts and right mixed up or forget what we've just said.
Yes.
So, station 2, sled push. Who's going into that first?
Shall I go in first? I think
go
because of the runs, because I'm going to need time to recover before we go back out, I'm best to go in first.
Yep.
So I run in, push.
One full length at least.
One full length, yeah, and then
I go.
Then I go, then you go.
Yep. If at any point you're slowing down though, tag out.
Yes.
Pull. Who's going first?
For a pull? Crikey. Well, try me again.
Okay. John's going in first on pull.
You are very fast on that, so you could always...
Well, I'm not, but...
We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
And then burpees. First to the line?
First to the line, and then do like, what, 7 or 8 each. Wait until we're actually haggard and then swap.
When you hear tears hitting the ground, that's a definite cue to swap.
Good point. Yep.
Then what's after that? Your favourite?
Row, yeah. So you start the row, do run about, I don't know, 250,
270, pushing 300 if I can, depending on pace.
And I'll sit down to 400 or 500.
Yeah, as much as you can. If it starts to drift up, we'll just swap. Yeah. That's kind of the cue in it.
It depends how, again, it's whether the burpees are blowing me up again, which is my nemesis.
Yeah, that's my nemesis too. We might just fall apart in the middle.
Oh dear. Yep, then
farmers. So I'll go in first on farmers.
Alright, so I get dizzy going around the loop.
I will try and do some of the loop, but there is an outbound straight bit as well.
Okay, alright, yeah, you just go as far as you can, because you're great at running with the kettlebells, so I'm not as good.
I'll as soon as it starts to become laboured, and then drop them.
Lunges.
Oh.
I think lunges same as burpees.
Yeah.
Whoever.
First to the line.
Yep.
Smash out 7.
And then 5 or 6, 7.
Yeah.
And then that's my real weakness, right?
Wall balls. Are you fussed about who goes in first there? First there.
And then again, throw until you drop.
Throw until you drop.
Yeah.
So that's our rough plan. And all we've got to do now is get our race clobber on.
Suited and booted.
Yeah. Yes. Get to the start tunnel now. Wish us luck.
Good luck. Do you think?
Okay, this is the part of the video where I talk a little bit about our race day footage, what it all amounted to, how did we get on, what were our times. I'm going to narrate you through this. It's not all of the footage, it's not all of our entire race, it's just the highlights, okay? Okay, so we're starting at the Red Bull start tunnel. I've just counted us down and we are away. At this point, I sort of lunged forward into my usual sprint out of the blocks, and I heard John in his Scottish accent shout, "Too fast, too fast." But I tapped the brakes and we were sort of running side by side from then onwards. So we're coming into station 1, which is the ski of 1,000 metres. We didn't adjust the damper at all, we just got on with it. As I described at the beginning, we had planned to do this in 4 chunks of 250 metres with a bit of a countdown, and John would back out on the right and I would step in on the left. It just made for a nice seamless transition and able to pick up the flywheel before it lost too much momentum. We've got 2 very distinct styles between John and myself. John has very long strokes from the very top of the handles right down to behind his knees, whereas I pick up the flywheel around my ear holes to my knees, and I've got a sort of higher tempo. And I was pulling around 135 to 140 in that first set. I'd always planned to go faster in my first set and slower in my second, so I was sort of tapering down, preparing my body for the very next run. So this is John's second go, and I'm just trying to catch my breath. It's important to try to bring your heart rate down when you're resting. It's unbelievable how high it stays when you're actually stood there behind. So John's now coming toward the end of his second. I'm keeping my eye on the time. I'm listening to John's cues. He counts me down. He's very clear about what he's doing. That is super important when you're in pairs. It stops you bumping into each other or dozing off or not paying attention. So this is my second set. You can see I'm noticeably slower on this set. I'm getting up to about the late 900s. John had got the attention of the marshal because there wasn't any around. That's important to do, to keep an eye on when you're in a pair. The resting person can pull over a marshal when you're nearly done. Saves time. So this is the run into station 2, which is the sled push. Now sometimes when you enter stations like this, there's a conga of people ahead of you. Don't be afraid to overtake. I think this is where we could potentially save time because everyone just slows right down. There's valuable seconds we could have saved there. So John, he was always going to go into this station first, and he holds the handles quite high on this, and I'm sort of trailing. I don't know why I'm doing that sort of weird walk. Put a little bit of a gun show on for the photographer, which I will buy the photos. Now it's my go on the push. Now I hold the handles a little bit lower here, and I'm really quite quick when I've only got 2 lengths to do. I whizzed back so fast on that first return leg that I heard John actually gasp behind me because he realised he had no time to rest. So that's the end of John's go, and this is just my return journey all the way back to put the sled back where it started. Once it's back and over the line, you then can sort of exit the station. It's important at this point to get running, right? The sled push is a bad one for compromising your legs, and sometimes it's hard to run out of the station, certainly when you've done 4 lengths. When you've done 2, it's much easier. Coming out of that, we did that in 1 minute 18 seconds, which is unbelievable when I think about it compared to my own solo times. Right, moving swiftly on, we are into the sled pull. And again, John has gone first, and he has a very distinct technique on this. He puts the rope down, he picks it back up and walks it all the way to the back, adding just a few extra pulls at the very end to sort of make the most of that last bit of momentum. Once he'd done his pull, I sort of razzed past him to get to the rope while he sort of got out the box, and I immediately started to pull. On my first go, I was a little bit fresh in the arms, so arm over arm was actually quite doable, and I was matching that up with walking backwards as well, which just adds speed to the entire process. So I'd sprint back across to the other side. Again, this is where you save time. If people start walking back across there, it's valuable seconds lost. So John's back on the rope now, and he's going back to his technique where he walks it all the way back, a couple of extra pulls, and before long it's back over our side, and I've got just 1 length to do. Again, I sort of jump ahead of John so I can get to the rope and have the rope ready while he's getting out the back of the box. Now my arms are a little bit tired now, and they're getting tired with every pull. I'm still doing arm over arm, but as it gets closer and closer to me, I start yanking at it so it slides a couple of meters at a time, just to get it those sort of the last half of the run back towards me. As you can see, I'm not quite doing hand over hand anymore. I'm pulling it to sort of my chest bone and just sort of jerking it until it gets all the way over into the box. Again, it's super important to run out of here because it's time wasted. Sometimes there's traffic, sometimes there's ropes. You just have to be careful. And between the sled pull and sled push, that avenue now, this is where the photo trap is, so make sure you give muscles as you exit. They've had these at both Birmingham and Manchester now, so it looks like it's something they're going to have at all the venues. Okay, so this is us going on run 4 into station 4, the Burpees. Now, we're right at the back behind all of these people. Most of these guys are in our wave, so these are sort of the fast guys in our wave. You can see them, they all look like Hercules with the 6-packs and whatnot, but we are making ground on them. With every station, we are catching a lot of these guys up. I'm actually doing the burpees right now, and I felt really springy in those first few, and I was getting some really big jumps. Normally I like to jump over 2 clean boxes, which is a meter each, but they were getting smaller as I made my way through. We anticipated doing these in chunks of 7 or 8, and I think we actually probably went more than that on most occasions. John handed over to me here at the turnaround point. I did maybe a half there and then passed back over to John. I could feel myself running out of energy at this point. And John did this last stint, and he probably did more than me on these. So I really appreciate that from John. John is sort of making his peace with the floor at that point. He's been told to stand in line by the referee, and that's fine. And we did our last hop out of there, and it was 3 minutes 4 seconds, which I thought was really quite good. We had a tiny little walk out of the burpees. The only place we did it, at about 10 seconds worth. We sort of put our arms around each other, we took a moment, and then we just carried on running. So now we're into station 5, the row, John's territory. I was going to go in first to do a small chunk. John was going to do the middle, bigger chunk, and I was going to do the small chunk at the end. This was all to preserve John, who he perceives himself to be less good runner than I. I don't know if that's true or not, but we did everything we could to try to sort of even our running out, and making me do the last part of the exercises on some of the heavier stuff. It just meant that our runs were more even. I went out a little bit more taxed, and allowed John to maintain pace, which was like a balance really. At the first part of this row, I was rowing about 140 per 500 meters, which is a bit quick, but it's quite manageable over 250 to 300 meters. John then had the middle chunk, which was about 600 meters, and I don't envy him having that chunk, but he was able to do it in such a way that was with energy preservation in mind. He's such an efficient rower. He's done it for years and years and years. He knows how to get the most out of the rower by putting the least in. So I'm now stood behind John. I'm watching him. I'm trying to catch my breath. I'm trying to bring my own heart rate down, but it's hard. And every now and again I look at my watch to see what my heart rate is. And a lot of the time it's at about 165, 170, and it's not coming down in the rest. And I know that with every stroke of the rower, John is coming toward the end, and I've got to have another go, which is only just going to bust my heart rate back up again. So John had about 600 to do. Toward the end, he once again communicated with me toward the end, saying he was about to get off, to let me know. I was trying to get a few last big breaths of oxygen in, because I knew he was about to jump off. I jumped back on, nearly fell off it, got my feet back into the straps, and tried to pick the flywheel up before it sort of came down too much, and I went into this last part of the row at a slower pace. It was about 145 to 150, and that's what I was able to sustain then. I mean, I'm surrounded by people that I know. I've got Grumpy and Mike, the head judge and the referee there. I've got John Stevenson, the rowing extravaganzo, stood right behind me watching my every move, but I didn't think I put in too poor a show on that one. And I even got a little pat on the back. Thanks, John. So we did that in 4 minutes 3. Arguably we can go a little bit quicker on that. I think we'd both busted hard in the burpees, and it compromised us for the row. I don't think it was too bad, all in all. So now we are out on the next run, heading towards the farmer's carry. Now, we couldn't really get a great deal of video on the farmer's carry because of this weird curly-whirly setup. It's a funny one. I don't think it was a very good farmer's carry for this, because it meant turning, U-turn after U-turn after U-turn. It means you can't get a load of speed up without having to lose it again at every single turn. So I did the first 100 meters or so, roughly. I put the weights down and then gave them to John. I'd half expected him to give them back to me because his stint looked more difficult because of the curly-whirly, but he didn't. He took them all the way to the end. And we did that in 1:26, which I thought was respectable. So now we are on the 7th run into station 7, which is the sandbag lunges. Now I got to the line first, I grabbed the bag and I started lunging, and these lunges felt actually okay at this point. They always kind of do at the beginning, they don't feel too bad. And I was able to get quite a bit of speed up, and even managed a little bit of a smile at this point. I thought it was only an out and back. Then I looked across and saw that it was in fact 4 lengths, and then yeah, that made my heart drop. Passed over to John, and we'd practiced these transitions in the warm-up area where we press it, throw it back, the person just sort of sneaks underneath it. It seems the most efficient way for us to do it. I've never been a fan of passing it backwards or sideways. So John is on, it looks like we're coming up on the last length. Now remember, you have to step over the white lines. That's kind of one of those rules. They're very much watching you, making sure that if you step on the line, they'll make you do an additional lunge, so it's important to clear it. So I did the last stint of the lunges, I threw the bag down, and I made a point to start running straight away, which made John start running straight away as well, because we could easily have come out of that and wasted a bit of time walking. So into the last run now. This feels really good when you know you've got no more runs and you're counting down the laps to your last station. And the last station is a brutal one, but when you've only got half the amount of reps to do, it's not too bad. John had said to me as we entered that he would go first, since I had gone last on the lunges, so he started to put the work in, right? I was counting roughly, and then I sort of zoned out for a second and lost what the count was with what John was on, and I couldn't quite zone back into the count. The marshal, the referee guy behind was occasionally saying the number, but I couldn't quite keep up with them. I couldn't even count my own reps. I don't know what was going on. I just did it by feel. I just did as many as I could, and then I would just tag out. It meant I would tag out at random numbers like 47 and 72, and toward the end, I think I got to about 91 before I decided to pass it back to John. Now it's a really funny environment being in the Thunderdome, because there's a lot of eyes on you. The finish line is literally right there. We don't even have to run to it. And I think this is John's last set now. I'm trying to look at the marshal's face to see how many he's on. He's not really telling us. So we've got a couple left. I'm sort of, do we get to run at this point? Oh no, I've got one last set. So I'm still going. This is where I got to 91. I had no idea what number I was on at this point. It was 90, 91. John's keeping an eye on me. And that's it, we've swapped again. This is the last 9. And we did this in 4 minutes 13, which isn't too bad. Now John thinks he's done there, but he's got 2 left. That's counted as a no rep. And this is the last one. And we're done. Up the finish line, nice roar at the camera. There's no better feeling than finishing a Hyrox event. I can tell you that from nothing. A little bit of downtime to catch my breath. And our time in the end was 1 hour, 7 minutes and 31 seconds.
John and I have just finished a really good race. How fast did we go?
107.31 or 32, I can't remember.
Yeah, 107.30 something. And that's the fastest either of us have gone by quite a few minutes. And it gives us a solid target to aim for in 3 weeks' time at London Excel. Obviously, I will analyse this a little bit in greater detail when I get back to the office, but I wanted to say thank you to John for a great race.
It's a lot of fun.
And we'll see him again in 3 weeks' time. 3 weeks' time.
What a fantastic day it was. The venue and the company and the performance were all top notch as far as I'm concerned. So we got a 1 hour and 7 minutes and 31 seconds. That is the fastest that I have gone and John has gone in any of our events in any capacity, right? So that's now set the bar quite high. I think we'd gone into it with a very loose idea that we were aiming for a 105. Now, I'm not disappointed by our performance, not by a long shot. I'm very happy with a 107. But I think a 105 is possible. A 65-minute effort with John is very, very doable. Now, why didn't we get it at Manchester? I showed you the times as we went through them there, and some of those times in the station, certainly around the sleds, the ski, the farmers carry, they were all quite good times. Places where I feel we could tighten up in the stations is the row, maybe a few seconds there. The lunges, we can save a little bit of time there, and if we tidied up the wall balls, again, we could save a little bit there. The times that I didn't show you in that video were the runs. Now, this is where I'm a little bit confused, because we look to be running quite a decent pace. It felt like we were running quite a decent pace when we were doing it. It looks like it in the video, but the times were coming back at about 5 minutes per 1 kilometre. Now, that doesn't seem to ring true. It's quite likely that those laps were over 1 kilometre and they're trying to balance it out with the slightly shorter lap at the beginning, but there's no way of telling 100%. But they felt slow. And I think this is the place where we can save the most time going into London. Now, we can't realistically make huge amounts of fitness gains with regards to the stations. We're both old hats at Hyrox, we know what we're doing. The stations are what they are. We'll just try as hard as we can in them, but we can gain a little bit of fitness if we apply ourselves to training for the running component between now and then. Hopefully we can get a little bit better, save a little bit each lap, and sort of inch towards that 105 target. Ultimately, I would take 1 second faster than Manchester as a win at London. So that's what we're planning to do. This was always going to be a two-parter: set the time, beat the time. Right, let's talk a little bit about the venue. Manchester Convention Centre, absolutely awesome. It is so good to be running a Hyrox event there for the 4th year. That was my 5th event at that venue. It's just wonderful to be there. Now, I have a special place in my heart for the Manchester Convention Centre because I did my first Hyrox there, right? The next year I went back and I did my first double with James, very special event too. I also did 2 events that day, so it's another reason why it's a special venue. And the year after that, I went and did mixed doubles with my wife, Holly. So all of the best memories from Hyrox have all come from Hyrox Manchester. And it's so good that John now is added to this list of awesome memories in my brain. And finally, I just want to say a massive thank you to John Stevenson for being my partner. It was an absolute privilege to run alongside you in this competition. I want to say a massive thank you to John's family because John came down and competed with me on his daughter's birthday. I do hope, Jamie, that you had a fantastic 50th birthday, and I do hope you spent lots of your daddy's money. You deserve it. Yeah, John, absolute legend, mate. I can't wait to run out with you again at London. I hope we can smash this time completely out of the park. All right, guys, before you go, please head over to John's Row Along channel. Make sure you give that a subscribe. And please give my channel, this channel, a subscribe before you leave. If you have any comments or questions, or you were out on the track with me that day, just drop down a comment, say hi. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in my next video soon. All right, Mart out.